Hey guys, let's give it some time for other people to be joining in. It's just the morning, like 9:30, enjoying some coffee and hoping to have some political and social media chatter with everybody. So I just got off interviewing with Sky News London. They're the first mainstream media actually to have reached out to have interviewed me about uh, about the assault that occurred on this past Sunday with the BLM and Antifa protest. Good morning, Devon. Morning. You guys enjoying your morning cup of coffee? I am. But it has definitely been a very hectic week. I will be doing a podcast later the um, with the crazy Ukrainian. I had done also an interview earlier this week with Jason Goodman, right in Madison Square Park where the attack had occurred. And also, if you guys are able to tune in, had interviewed with Newsmax, uh, next Next News Network. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. So I am in the rooftop right now. You can see the skyline view. It's fantastic, just from the lounge. Is mayonnaise an instrument? How can it be used as an instrument? But uh, so yeah, I have filed a report with the NYPD, and they are investigating the individuals who had attacked me. Um, Evidently, these guys have been making rounds, and I'm not the only person that they have. You guys want to see the view? This is Midtown Manhattan. So I do believe the NYPD is taking what happened seriously, and that they are investigating what had happened, because of course, we want to prevent this from ever happening to other people. You guys could see that right when I had been able to walk away from the mob, I encountered a really sweet elderly lady, and she goes, "Sweetie, did Antifa do that to you?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "I took a brick to the face. They threw a brick in my face." I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, I don't even know what to think. I mean, you hear these stories, but now that I've been, here in New York covering these events, to be meeting people that had been hurt by BLM rioters and Antifa, it's insane. Yeah, they're part of the problem. Dean, thank you very much. That's really very sweet of you. So be sure to hit that like button like it's a seatbelt and click it. But you guys can see I am doing well. I still, it took me a couple of days to go back and actually watch the footage that I had streamed, and I haven't posted yet the view that I had from my Sony. So everybody's seen the views that I've had from my cell phone, and then also the views that I had from that I had been live streaming. I do have additional footage that I will be releasing. It's from the angle of my Sony, and then also I had a GoPro that was on me. When the crowd had come at me, they were like, "She's got two cameras," and I'm like, I actually had 3, and leave it to me to sass back and say, like, "Oh, the better to record you." And then when they actually stole my microphone. They stole my microphone. And so there was one really good Samaritan, who jumped in uh, when the man was spraying the chemical agent at me. So you can see him in he was in the black hoodie. He was in front of me trying to protect me from the man who was coming in with the chemical spray, the chemical string. And then actually, that's how Antifa kind of like functions, to like surround you. They distract you from the front. So that's like their level of tactical training, is they distract you from the front. But so if you ever find yourself in that position, know that that if something, you know, uh, is happening in the front, that it serves more as a distraction, because that's when the guy from the back came in with the skateboard and hit me. And so to be smart going forward, so that's why they had like encircled me in that fashion and had me pinned up against the fence. So they had me pinned up against 2 of the fence, because you can see that it was broken up into 2 series of basically assaults. The first one is I was when I refused to turn off the stream as media, and because I saw them harassing the other journalist that was there, so I went and stood by him, and he was also standing his ground, saying that we're media, we're covering it. And of course it's a public space, a public park. Like when they were taking to the streets, saying whose streets, our streets, and trying to claim it as their own, and then to be intimidating people that are in a public space. And so yeah, that's why I stood my ground as a media and a journalist, to not turn off my stream. And then that was like the first attack. And the second one, after I was already away from the crowd and sitting at the bench, when they had identified who I was. And then of course, being a Trump supporter, that's when they came at me the second time. And that's when they had also incited the others to really bring forward and bring chase to me. As you could see, that they were calling me a Nazi. And then one Slavic guy, he was saying he was saying profanities to me in Polish terms. Yeah, exactly. Why would a large crowd feel threatened by an individual person covering their events? Um, and correct, they're not right in the head. It was a mob of 20 or 30 against like one female. It's interesting how like the like this group, they advertised themselves as the rally was actually advertised. I can um, if you follow their Antifa Twitters, you can see like the posters that they had up. They were advertising it as a food drive even, and they were making announcements about like food drives. I'm just glad that in a sense nobody had a can to smash that over my head. Um, but can I sue the police for not helping? Honestly, you guys, I've always been back the blue. What we need to like, and I do. Their job is to protect and serve, and this is something that am struggling with my experience on that day, is like to, I anticipated how the crowd was, like the crowd being what they are. But the hardest part for me also in that experience was when I had run up to the police and asked them for help. And I just felt like when they told me, they pointed away for me to stand back and away from them, and all they said was 6 feet. um, that was also very traumatic for me. I don't plan on suing the police. Like who I do blame is Mayor De Blasio. I blame the leadership, um, because I don't want to make an excuse and say they're just taking orders, because as an individual, we do know what's right and what is wrong. Um, and I was very lucky that there was a good Samaritan on the street, one person who came in and tried to protect me from the crowd. And so I am keeping his identity, you know, uh, to not be public. He had said not to make his identity public. And but there was one person that was there who's military and part of the National Guard, and he basically he stumbled across the events that were he stumbled across Madison Square Park on his way to get breakfast, and he saw the crowd coming at me. And at first he just saw a mob. He didn't even know who was, like, if there was a person in the center of it, but he knew something was going on wrong. And then he could see me by myself and enshrouded by like a mob of 20 and 30. And so he jumped in to try and defend me. And he's the one that had escorted me out, because you guys were able to see that I couldn't leave. I was being followed as I tried to walk away. They were chasing after me. One, like, it's pretty disgusting. She was rubbing up the diaper in her crotch and stuff like that. And they came up from behind and like put it into my face, and then continued like threatening me. And I couldn't walk away. So fortunately, this individual had then walked me away. We looked to our back to make sure we weren't being followed. We were followed for a couple blocks. Um, so it was a very traumatizing experience. But what I had just interviewed with Sky News London, and what I had said to them, because they asked me how that experience was going to be affecting my journalism, and it's it's not going to push me back. Actually, it's motivating me to move forward even more and made me more passionate about what I'm doing. And so I've been now under attack, also being called, like, that you're not a real journalist or anything. But this is the part of the importance of being a citizen journalist, and to use whatever platform and voice that you have to be to don't feel like your platform and your voice is ever too small to be speaking the truth and to be exposing the truth. You speak your piece, and that's what I'm doing. I might have a small media platform, but what I have is what I will use to bring it forward. And so you can see in today's age the rise of citizen journalists, and it's as simple as taking out your cell phone and recording the footage of what's going on, because the censorship that we are experiencing in the mainstream media, it doesn't you know it doesn't it doesn't necessarily reflect what's actually happening. And Sky News Network is a mainstream media. Like I said, I was on Newsmax, I was on InfoWars this week, and a couple other conservative media channels. So it's good that a mainstream media platform had reached out to me to get to cover the events that had happened, so that way, we have the circulating idea, or concept. I mean, even my own brother says, "Oh, Antifa's an idea," and even with what happened to me, to have my own brother still say, "Oh, Antifa's an idea." I'm like, ideas don't physically assault people in the streets of in our American streets, in New York, in Portland, in Chicago, in Seattle. So yes, the impact of what happened. My brother loves me, of course, he loves me as I love him, but it is very difficult in the sense to have that division, that what we see, in division amongst friends. It is very challenging when you have that division within your family. But like what I was saying is that this experience has only motivated me more to be putting myself out there and capturing more of the footage of what's going on. Um, so at least from the angle of the Polish American Brotherhood, my platform on YouTube, hopefully it won't be censored and pulled down. I have had to remove several of my videos that I will be uploading into BitChute and Rumble, because I know those type of contents are going to be targeted on YouTube to be shut down. I've been censored for the past, like, well, almost, I'm going to be going on 5 months of censorship from Facebook. Um, uh, so my Facebook account is pretty dead right now. And then I had like one day that I was able to even upload and update people about what had happened in Madison Square Park, to be uploading the footage to that for one day, and then they censored me again for completely, like, BS reasons. So I had a dance. I was dancing to YMCA and saying MAGA. That video was posted on November 4th, and so get this: that video from November 4th was now censored 2 days ago, saying that it's incitement for violence. what MAGA? What are you afraid of for dancing to the YMCA with MAGA? So also, I had posted some of the footage from the Capitol, from the inside of the Capitol, and that was reposting. I was not present inside of the Capitol, as I had said to Sky News that I am not in agreement with the people that had gone inside of the Capitol. I understand also though that it was such a hectic day. But if you see the footage of the people that are like what they want to present is the acts of violence over there, and there were some. But for you have with any huge crowd, there's going to be also like the bad apples that are present, and you got to think that like of all of the riots that we've had across the year, what you've had one incident coming from the right wing side, and you've had over 150 federal buildings that were destroyed between the BLM and Antifa riots. And but like when I see the footage of they look more like tourists, like when they're staying within the lines, the velvet ropes, and taking selfies, and you have families, and then you have like they're really cracking down to arrest everybody that had gone inside of the Capitol. And even I know several like citizen journalists that were there. They've been actively covering all of the rallies and protests, and over the past year that and since they don't have the credentials of with an official news publication, and that's what an independent journalist is you're not going through a news station, you're not going through an outlet, you're an independent reporter. And so yeah, so the events that were happening in the Capitol, like I said, my approach would have been to to set up an autonomous zone. I just tweeted about that, saying like, who wants to set up an autonomous zone? I'm like, hell, if they can do that in Portland, so can we set up an autonomous zone and camp out in front of the lawns, and just keep it peaceful, but so that voices are heard. And just we always have to keep it peaceful, because the true supporters of Donald Trump are going to be those who do keep it peaceful. It's a couple of days from inauguration, and Donald Trump has exhausted every legal means. They stole the election. They did. And but that doesn't mean we don't move forward, because I guess something that my family had always said is anytime I would say life's unfair. My father's a Soviet refugee, and my mother also is an immigrant from a third world country. So their lives were not the easiest, especially my father. Like, he saw a picture of America when he's 13 years old, and he's like, I want to go there because they look like they have food. And so he was 16 when he first tried to escape from communism. And then, so when you cross the border in a communist country, like, they don't just send you back, they shoot you. So, but at least the patrol guards who had caught him the first time that he tried to escape from Poland took pity on the fact that he was a child and didn't shoot him. So they sent him back, but he had already started to try to escape from Poland. So he crossed from Yugoslavia, which is present day Slovenia, Koper, over to Trieste in Italy, and that's where he got political asylum. So, sorry, a little bit of a backstory as to where my passion for fighting against communism comes from. It's from living, from my father living his experience, and growing up with the understanding of what actually happens in like communist countries. And then also I've lived abroad. I know like America is the best, because the freedoms that we have here in America you will not have in the rest of the world. I've traveled to over 57 countries, and lived 11 months abroad straight in 2019. But God, sorry, this is losing my train of thought now. So what I was saying is, like, even if I say the word unfair, my parents will look at me and be like, you've got a roof over your head, you have food on your plate, life is unfair, suck it up, buttercup. Basically, like, it's not about trying to correct the past, it's about what are you going to do to progress forward. And so we have to ask ourselves, the state that we're at now, what are we going to do to progress forward. And making sure I sip a little bit here and everything because I've been yelled at to be wearing my masks, even though the closest person from me is literally like 20 feet away. I'm sitting at a table drinking coffee, and fortunately I had finished my Sky News interview before they had come in and told me you have to wear your mask. And I'm like, I have my drink, I'm sitting down, I'm drinking. But goodbye liberties, all I could say. But yes, so we have to look at the state that we're at now, understand that life is unfair, the election has been stolen, but what are we going to be doing now to be progressing to move forward? And, like, people ask me saying that, oh, you said you would accept, if Biden was to be the president, you would accept him as the president. I said that I would accept a fair election, actually. So in which case, like, I am one person, but like my goals are going to be fighting the censorship that we're experiencing on social media, to be protesting against big tech companies. It's absolutely horrendous to think that these tech companies have more power than the president of the United States, to be deplatforming Trump off of Twitter, to be trying to close his bank accounts for the city of New York now, to try and stop his name from being on any of the buildings. Like, the fact that they're trying to impeach now, like, concept of impeachment is to be removing a person from the presidency. Hello, it's only a couple days away from the inauguration of the next president. Like, how are you trying to remove? It's for the sole purpose of just trying to embarrass him more, to tarnish his legacy. He's not maybe, like, in the mainstream media, he's not somebody that's going to be appreciated in our current, this year or next. But I really encourage everybody to be looking to the policies of what he's actually done for the United States, the state of the economy, the prior to COVID, and what he had tried to, even with that, work with keeping places from being locked down, keeping us from having a mandatory like mask mandate. So what are we going to do to move forward? Ninja warriors, absolutely. I don't know, like, it's like I said, when it's a public space. I told them to walk away from me. I tried to walk away, and when I just don't, I just don't give in to bullies very much. And people ask me why I didn't even punch back. Okay, so I can take a beating. So I had trained before, like 4 months in the Philippines in a boxing camp, 2 months in doing Muay Thai, and I've been part of several like fight clubs also in training throughout the past while. Um, so I chose not to punch back at any point, and I was conscious in my head not to do that, because I knew as soon as I did, the narrative would have been Trump supporter, like, attacks peaceful protester at BLM rally, and that would have made the mainstream media, like, right away. So that's why I took more of a beating as opposed to punching back. Sorry, I'm checking out some of your guys' comments as they're coming through. Um, yeah, exactly. I would have been labeled as the bad guy in that day, even if I were to have had a punch in self-defense. So I wasn't going to give them that, because I do feel in a sense that's what happened at the Capitol. That that you can see, like, there were police that opened up the barriers, that ushered people in. You have families that came in, they were acting more as tourists, they weren't some violent individuals. You had people that were acting out in violence, but then you also have people that were trying to stop them from breaking the windows. And so it was a setup that day. It was a setup, and it gave the mainstream media like it. They are now trying to say like people have been saying like, oh, you're part of the domestic terrorist group MAGA. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, so 70 million people who voted for Trump you're labeling them, a, a quarter, or sorry, a fifth of the population, because not everybody votes in America, um, trying to label them as a domestic terrorist, and affiliating them. So because you have people who from the right side condemning the violence that had occurred that day, but when violence occurs on the left wing side, you don't have the left condemning the violence. The common answer that I hear when I ask people, like, when their violence occurs from the left wing, I'm like, would you condemn it? They just say to me, I understand why it's happening. I mean, I understand why it's happening, but it doesn't make it right, does it? Exactly. The hypocrisy of it is insane. It's true. They did um, right away for me when I was trying to go behind them on that day. Yeah, the irony that even the Mexican president is more um, pro Trump than Americans are. That'll faster. But I would say, in a sense, like, um, the advice I would give if you do find yourself in that situation, other than, of course, survive it, um, be conscious that the way that things are spun in the media and how things are clipped out of context, and the judgment is going to fall in that singular moment. And so, to restrain yourself from giving them that satisfaction, because that's when our enemies are going to take that one moment of weakness. And it's not even, in a sense, if I had swung back, I wouldn't have considered it to be weak. It would have been normal to defend yourself, which by all means you have the right to, but it would have ended up subjecting me to a lot more than what happened on that day. It was a crowd of 20, 30 on one. That's like, they were punching me, and with the umbrella, this and that, but it wasn't at a point of nothing that I could not take. So I sustained it rather than punching back, because then they probably really would have killed me. And that's why it's also been hard to go back and watch the footage still of it, because I started watching it, and it's like kind of watching your own death. But exactly, that's what they want. I think that they were trying to still aggravate and push more to get it out of me to fight back. Even, like, they pride themselves on being the party of tolerance, but, like, the sheer existence, or my sheer existence, in a sense, contests what the narrative is. I am a POC. I'm mixed Asian. Everyone's like, well, she's not white. I'm like, nah, I'm brown. But everything becomes race politics, and when race isn't even something that's involved in the situation, and, like, it's not involved that I'm even female, but the fact that they promote themselves to on these platforms of racial divide, and also, you know whatever gender or sex you are, um, they want to, be like, oh, feminism, blah blah blah. I'm not a feminist, actually. So I do like when guys open the door, and I like to know that dates are dates. Um, and I believe in a partnership between man and women to be supportive of each other. Um, but so when they pride themselves on being like pro women, and in our current notion of feminism, and to be like POCs, you can't be racist up or anything, only racist down. So it's ironic on that day that these big old tough guys are saying, "I'll knock you out," to a POC woman. Yeah, in the mainstream media in Sweden is very biased. Like, I have a lot of friends that are international, and unfortunately, like when they found out that I was a Trump supporter, because it was very like shocking when I when I came out as a Trump supporter to a lot of individuals. You guys know I'm a registered Democrat. I'm not actually changing my political registration because it doesn't matter to me if you're Democrat or Republican. Um, it's about like supporting the candidate that you know to be right. And so when my friends found out that I am in support of President Trump, they they knew to me they knew me to be a sane person. So like my true friends just asked me why. And actually a lot of my friends who had taken the time to ask me why and to understand, in that conversation, it sparked them to do their own research. And so then several of my friends actually became Trump supporters after a very quick conversation with me, just to understand why, because they knew I wasn't crazy for being a Trump supporter. And then the other half of my friends who don't ask me why, they just cut me off completely. Hey, the walkaways. They deplatformed also Brandon Starka. So the walkaway movement that was started by Brandon Starka, and I've attended several of his rallies. They censored him, took him off of Facebook. I don't know what the status of him in terms of YouTube, because a lot of my friends who run conservative media channels also on on YouTube, they've been deplatformed. New and better friends. Yes, of course, it's important. It's good to be finding like-minded individuals, but I like to also have, in a sense, like it's good to have the diversity of thoughts are reflected in your circle, because you don't ever want to create a sound, an echo chamber of views. The important part is to have individuals who are tolerant, who are willing to have an open, honest, and effective discourse. And to have an effective discourse, you have to hold back your trigger of emotions and becoming upset about whatever words and language that's being used, and look truly to the intention of the individuals, because not all of us are effective at communications. It's very easy to miscommunicate, especially when emotions and every are involved, and we are in such charged state of emotions that when we say something that sounds wrong, but it's not necessarily what we mean. So when you have a trust factor among people to know the intention that in place that they're coming from, even if they don't necessarily say the right words, we have to hold back that trigger and impulse to become angry or react to that, because when we do that, that's when we shut off the brain and run on emotion. We have to stop doing that, because like we do need to move forward. As I was saying, would I in a sense forgive the friends that have said not so many nice things to me? If I like I am a open individual with that, so like um going forward, I mean, we'll see, right? Talk to the more Polish to migrate here. That's true. I am actually a Polish citizen, so I'm like, what? All else fails, I can always go to Poland. But I mean, I travel to Poland like almost every year. I wasn't able to go last year. Um, I do have some international travel plans this year. I'm hopefully going to be going to Dubai pretty soon, and then I have a friend's wedding in India. So both UAE and India would be new places for me to be exploring. Dobrze. So I did not file a complaint with the NYPD. I did file a report on the assault that happened. Um, I am not going to file a complaint with the NYPD, but I did talk to them about my feelings of what happened that day. Of course, the detectives I had talked to, they're not the ones who were on the ground um, for for, to have been there personally, to have stopped what was happening to me. And they they everybody was very sad, and nobody wanted to see what happened. What had happened to me, nobody wants to see that ever happen to me or to anybody. And like I said, the responsibility, the lotus of responsibility falls onto the mayor, Governor Cuomo, to the leadership. Um, yeah, 6 feet away, please. Um, that to me was very crazy to experience, especially since I am back to blue. But that's where, like I said, the responsibility from my perspective falls onto the leadership, and I just want to see people to improve, because we need to be moving forward. We need to improve. Like, I don't know if there could be, um, like in that situation, like somebody should have escorted me out, from a police standpoint. Luckily, there was a good Samaritan who had done that for me. Um, yeah. It's always been blue versus you. Um, yeah. Sorry, I didn't catch your name, who said that you work in law enforcement. It was a crazy moment. And yeah, like, again, I'm not trying to make excuses for the way that NYPD had acted on that day, but, um, when they're in a position that if they step in, they could face a, how the narrative has been really against them. If they stepped in, and then as soon as you even like touch a person who is like BLM, the narrative changes to like, oh, you're assaulting a peaceful protester. There's nothing peaceful about the guys that were coming after me, and they were BLM and Antifa. But yeah, like I said, if you find yourself in those situations, like, granted, like, I'm thankful that they didn't actually kill me. I am, alive and well to be able to be having this conversation with you guys right now. Um, yeah, they are trying to dox me. Actually, I'm going to do another segment, where I'm going to show you the chatter that they have been having about me. I have been taking screenshots of it. It's actually really funny because, like, I mean, I have a weird sense of humor, so I have a very dark sense of humor. So I think it's funny. It's probably not very funny. Um, but they're like, oh, she's a jet setting Trump supporter. I'm like, okay. Oh, she's a failed beauty queen. I'm like, okay. I have opened up a Rumble account. You won't see any content on there yet, but it is in my immediate to-do list to be uploading a lot of my content onto Rumble and onto BitChute. I have had to take several of my videos down from YouTube because they are targeting to censor, and for the type of material that I cover on my channel, it's 3 strikes are going to happen immediately, because everything is, minus my early videos of Polish history, everything is MAGA, um, and pro America. And so those 3 strikes, if they're striking me on Facebook for dancing MAGA to YMCA, is going to happen very fast. And it's, when they wipe you off of social media like that, it is, they're wiping out your voice. And that's something that we need to be fighting back on. What does that look like in terms of a fight? I mean, we went and started Parler, and they canceled Parler. That's the cancel culture that we're living in. That because people are saying like, oh, if you don't like it, why don't you go start your own? It's like, well, we did. We started Parler, and then they took that away. Anytime you try to use platforms such as YouTube, you get censored. I mean, I'm going on 5 months of not being able to live stream on Facebook. I used to live stream all the time on Facebook, and got 2 months of not being able to live stream initially on Facebook because I covered November 14th Stop the Steal rally. I was streaming from there, with showing the footage of marching. They said it went against community standards, um, so they took that off. In the rally I was covering the PBs, so you'll notice that a lot of my PB content I've had to take off, and I'm going to be putting that onto Rumble. I am very much pro PB, and so that content is now, because it shows the PBs in a good light. Of course, that's against the narrative as to what they want to be saying about these guys. So I am having to put that up in Rumble and BitChute. And then now that they're trying to label MAGA as a domestic terrorist organization, so you have to be even conscious to be using the hashtags MAGA or Stop the Steal, because that's going to target your account to then have your accounts wiped. It's almost like wiping your existence. It's like you guys, we're all living in a very Black Mirror, surreal reality now. It's nothing it's interesting that we're experiencing this in our lifetime. It feels like it's the fall of America. Um, it is. But, like I said, we have to focus on moving forward and not stopping this fight against having free and fair elections. This one was stolen. What are we going to be doing about it going towards the future? I'm going to be getting involved with the Republican Party, and continuing with my journalism and social media reporting. I want to become involved with the Republican Party, and then elections is, we have midterm elections in 2 years, so that's literally right around the corner. So we got to keep going. I'd like to see, you know, an emergence of a multi-party system. I don't see, my views are not necessarily reflected in either the Democrat or the Republican Party. I'm just somewhere like there. So I would consider myself more of an independent or a libertarian. Um, but as long as, from what I've experienced and learned in the last several months, um, the Democrat Party is not one that I can currently back. And so with a current state of a two-party system, like there's in the Republican Party, there's rhinos that we need fresh new voices and perspectives that are going to come in there. I am like, Mitch McConnell. I used to be a big fan of his, um, but he's a traitor. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Patriot Party. I would love for an official party to be called the Patriot Party, because you're not Republicans. We're patriots. We're pro-America. We're pro the original Constitution of our rights. We see that First Amendment, like, it's not taken in the literal sense of the government can't arrest you for speaking. It's even the essence of freedom of speech when we're being censored. That's a violation of our First Amendment rights, because none of us should ever be silent. I mean, when you can have it come to a race. If people don't want to listen to you, they don't have to. But it's a free contest of people's views and opinions and expressions to be moving forward, and let the best expression, in a sense, like, win. But you don't win a contest by shutting down the other individual. You win by its own merits and the own arguments that you're putting forward. It's cheating when you cut the voice off of the other person and say, like, well, my opinion trumps yours. And the thing is, like, opinions are not supposed to be, better or worse than each other. We just express ourselves, and you don't put that power in a government or a big tech to then be deciding what opinions can and voices can move forward and what cannot. Let them all move forward. So you don't, when it's dangerous when you have a entity that has power to then be deciding what's considered hate speech or not. Like, that, for freedom of speech, you need to let all speech move forward. For hate speech, people will turn and not listen to you. And that's how it's supposed to be. But thanks, guys, for tuning in this morning. I will be coming back doing a couple more live streams to just, have some free-flowing chatter with y'all. Thanks for commenting. Be sure you hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter. I mean, as long as the accounts are up, I've been pretty, I guess, vocal on my Facebook, because like when I have an instance that they allow me to even post before they then cancel my ability to post the next day. But right now I'm back up on Facebook, and yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. Please, everybody, be safe out there. Pray, and let's start our own Patriot party. God bless America. God bless the Patriots. God bless Americans. And God bless Donald Trump.